Caregiving can be an isolating journey. For people living on reserve, there can be even fewer supports and resources, even though caring for elders and other community members is a sacred responsibility. So that's why U of A researcher Grant Bruno created the Indigenous Caregiving Collective, or the ICC. It is the first Indigenous-focused caregiving initiative of its kind in Canada. And he's here with us now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thanks for having me.
So we went through it a little bit there, but why did you see a need for this collective?
So this is really, I think, a reflection of the different roles that I carry. So I'm a father. I have 5 children, 2 of which are on the autism spectrum. And so I've been providing care for them since they were diagnosed and even before that. But I realized in the past few years, when I first understood caregiving in my own life, that I've been providing care since I was a child, actually. And so I'm actually one of 6 siblings to a single mom. And I was the second oldest. And so a lot of the caregiving responsibilities were given to me, including, cleaning and different, I think, parent-style things that I think I had to do just growing up. And so I've been doing this for most of my life, and I didn't realize. And then on top of that, I'm an assistant professor in pediatrics. And so I do a lot of research now. And what I realized is that there's very little research done in this area around Indigenous peoples and caregiving. And so now, using my roles as a father, as a researcher, and as a community member, I'm also a registered member of Samson Cree Nation, one of the nations that makes up Musqueam. And so I understand what it means to provide care for your family, and also understand the different challenges that it presents too. And so these challenges can be around jurisdiction. These challenges can be around feeling overwhelmed. Sometimes we deal with financial stress and so on and so forth. And so to bring all of these different lived experiences together in a project, I came up with the Indigenous Caregiving Collective.
Yeah. It seems that this would be obvious. Like when you think about caregiving, community, family, to know that this is the first of its kind in Canada, what has it been like for you? What kind of response have you received from people who you've spoken to about it?
So this initiative is being supported by the Canadian Centre for Caregiving Excellence. They're a national organization who have been exploring all the different realities and experiences of caregiving, from immigrants to moms, caregiving for elderly, caregiving for sick or ill loved ones, and so on and so forth, right? So for myself, being the first to do something isn't that new. My PhD research was on autism in First Nations communities, and it was groundbreaking research, and it's still considered such. But at the same time, I understand that because we're the first, it's going to come with, there's going to be some growing pains in that, but that's okay. I really feel like as long as we are taking the community's direction and they're in the driver's seat of everything that we do, we've got to make sure that the initiatives that we do decide to go ahead with reflect the community. And so one of our first activities was to actually hire a care navigator. And so this care navigator actually works in the Nipsigopak Pediatric Clinic in Musqueam. And their main role is just to connect with caregivers and offer them support in ways that they want to be supported. And so we're addressing a community need through research, which doesn't happen very often, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, and what kind of response do you get from people who are caregivers who maybe haven't had that support or didn't know where to turn to?
It's interesting. So one of my PhD studies was just interviewing and connecting with Indigenous caregivers who had autistic children. And one of the things that they did to me actually after each interview was they thanked me. And they thanked me because this was one of the first times anybody's ever asked them about their experience as a caregiver. It is, like you had mentioned earlier, caregiving can be a very isolating role. It's underappreciated, underacknowledged. And what I see, especially in First Nations communities, is it's one of our strengths though. I think that caregiving happens in all different spaces, right? Children with disabilities, or sometimes it's our gukums or grandmothers taking care of their grandchildren. And so for me to start to build awareness and start to show appreciation for these roles, I think is really important. And on top of that, again, we want to start doing other types of activities, such as building workshops. One thing that the caregivers have told us is that system navigation is a huge challenge. And so for me, I find it challenging for myself, and I have expertise in this area, right? And so for us, we want to build workshops. What does good system navigation look like? What does good advocacy look like, right? And how do you start to equip people with these skills so that they can start providing for their families?
Right. So, okay, and not to get ahead of ourselves, where do you hope to see the work that you're doing in, I'll say 5 years, not 10 years, in about 5 years?
I often tell people when I'm explaining this work is it's a grassroots initiative with a national scope. And so what I would love to do is be able to connect with caregivers from across Canada to understand their different needs, right? So, the needs of somebody who's Inuit is going to be different than somebody who lives in an urban setting. And that needs to be recognized and acknowledged throughout. And so within those 5 years, what we're hoping to do is to build a national platform where caregivers can learn from each other and then have workshops actually happen throughout the country. And so I think it's really important to start to think about all the different caregiving that happens already and start to really celebrate it. And so that we can start acknowledging ourselves and start appreciating the work that we do. So again, our communities have many strengths and caregiving is just one of them. But if we can start to leverage these strengths and start to actually support families, I think things will get better.
The difference that you're making in communities and again, drawing from your own experience, that is so invaluable. Thank you so much for coming in today and sharing your story with us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Niskomo, and thank you for having me.